Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio with Shane, Paris, and myself, Scott. We're excited to be here this week. We're excited to be in a position where we can share with you some really exciting news. Now, you've heard us talk about gold and silver in the past. You've heard us talk about the value. You've also heard about us talking about how it hedges against inflation, right? Well, there's a lot that you probably still don't know, a lot you probably still don't understand. And what we're telling you to do right now is to go learn. We have partnered with ITM Trading. So go to learn.itmtrading.com/Prepper Talk Radio, and they are going to give you some very special one-on-one attention to help you understand what gold and silver can do, how you can use it. Paris, you and Shane both know a lot more about this than I do, but it is a way you can actually invest and a way you can preserve wealth through different platforms, right?
Well, yeah, I think it really depends on your perspective. Gold historically is, like you mentioned, Scott, is a way to preserve wealth. It's not necessarily an investment, or hasn't been an investment, but and a lot of people may disagree with that, and I do as well. But it can be an investment, it can be an insurance, and these guys at ITM, they've been doing this for a long time. They know what they're talking about. So, I think
really
that's
cool
a lot of value to have that strategy session with them.
What's really cool about gold and silver is that it has value in and of itself.
Yeah.
And the value that it has it tracks with inflation. I did a video on my financial channel about gold and silver just recently. And one of the things I mentioned was that if you have $5,000 sitting in a savings account that you don't necessarily need, it's kind of just sitting there. It may even be something that you may never spend for years. It's just money that you have. It's better to put it into gold and silver than it is to keep it in a savings account. So I'm not talking about like your rent money. Like, don't go put your rent money into gold and silver. Like, that's not what I'm talking about.
Unless your landlord accepts payments in gold and silver. Right?
Yeah, maybe he does or she does. So if that's the case, then do it. But what I'm saying is that if you've got money just sitting around doing nothing, you're doing it wrong. If you're scared you're gonna lose money, then the way to put that is put that into gold. And the reason why I say it's got to be something that year or two down the road maybe that you'll need is because there's a little bit of a premium when you buy gold. And so for the spot price, or which is the actual price that gold sells back at, to reach that point where it kind of overcomes the premium and really you can basically get your money back, it takes a minute. It's not something you don't buy gold and think you're going to have a return next week or next month. Like, you buy gold for long term.
Well, there's different places on every investment strategy that you want to come from, but for most people, they don't know where to start. I actually was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting today, and it was interesting because one of the guys was like, yeah, I'm a money advisor. I teach people where to invest their money, where to keep their money, to how to hedge against inflation. And I go, oh, what do you do with gold and silver? He goes, oh, I don't touch it. I'm like, then how can you hedge against inflation? Nothing else in the market does, historically.
Not
and he
as
goes, well, I guess land and homes. And I'm like, now you're guessing. And I think I just completely shattered his business pitch at the meeting. And I kind of felt bad, but I'm also kind of like, dude, learn what you're talking about. I'm like, that's not my wheelhouse. So I'm going to let you two talk about it more than me. I just got my first piece of gold from a really dear friend of mine as a birthday gift. I'm not going to name any names, but the Prepared guy is awesome. He hooked me up. But here's the thing, like, I've got lots of silver I've been collecting, but it's not where all my money goes. And that's not today's topic. So I don't want to go too crazy about this and go off topic too far, but like in everything preparedness, do something, do a little. So that's our encouragement today. If you don't know enough about gold and silver, you've got disposable income, you've got money sitting in an account, go to learn.itmtrading.com/Prepper Talk Radio. They're going to take great care of you. They'll help you out. And it also helps support the show. Absolutely. Now, what we want to talk about today is equally important. Mm-hmm. And you may have heard this term before, you may not have, but you've probably, as a Christian, have learned the term wolves in sheep's clothing. Well, there's also a term that's being used in the world of prepping called werewolf preppers. We talked a little bit about this last year, but I want to get into it because this just resurfaced. across social media. Like I've seen so many people in my circle of friends on social media. They're like, hey, watch out for so-and-so. We just found out they're a werewolf prepper. And it was interesting because I distanced myself from that guy last year because something didn't feel right. You ever get those gut checks that just tell you that guy's not what they say, or that lady, or that, but this isn't what it seems. Look behind, Wizard of Oz, like, don't trust all the smoke and mirrors. Like Joe Biden, I don't trust that guy either, right? Werewolf prepper. So what is a werewolf prepper, first of all?
So from what I understand, a werewolf prepper is the idea of a lycanthrope is that they're a human being, but then underneath it, they at the slightest temptation, they change into this devouring beast. So that's kind of like the idea behind it. So as they're in your neighborhood, they might say, "Oh yeah, let's work together." They're not doing anything to really prepare, but they're all about you preparing, because what their plan is to take you out and take your stuff, and then they prepare by knowing who else has all the stuff, and they're gonna go try to take them all out and get their stuff. That's what I think. Am I right?
Yeah, well, 100%. Another aspect of this that I've heard is that, werewolf prepper is someone who is a prepper who has been preparing for a long time. And I think a lot of people get to the point, or at least some people get to the point where, man, I've been doing this forever. Nothing's ever happened. I've never used my preps, why am I doing this? Right? They maybe start to question themselves, at least somewhat, and realize that how many people around them are starting to prepare, see what's going on, and starting to wake up, and really just don't have a moral compass, right? And say, you know what, I've got all these guns and ammo, and I've been doing a lot of training over the years. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty confident. My buddies, we'll get together, form this group, werewolf group, and we're going to go take, because we've got a certain amount. I really don't want to get any more, because if you ask me, they're not true preppers, right? If they get to that point where they're giving up, right? Which we all get to that wall. All get to that point to where we're like, okay, what am I doing? I've got all this stuff. It doesn't get used. I have to rotate it. It's a lot of work. Do I really want to keep doing this?
Right.
And something would have to click. Something would have to change in their mentality, their mindset. Maybe they've gotten bitter for some reason or another, and they say, they change their mentality, change their way of looking at preparedness, because we're preppers for a reason, right? We have a goal in mind at the end. We're not just surviving to survive. We have and I'm speaking for myself, I have a purpose, right? Take care of family, get through the apocalypse, see Christ come down in the clouds, right? That's kind of, and being a werewolf prepper takes all that away, right? Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not murder, right? Thou shalt not steal, right? That's the antithesis of a prepper, if you ask me.
Well, what's interesting, thou shalt not covet.
Mm-hmm.
They're coveting your stuff enough to kill you for it. They want your stuff enough to kill you for it. That's the definition of covet. So here's the crazy thing is, like, I was like super prep for a while, and it was like my whole focus, trying to get everything prepared. And then I started helping other people get prepared, and I did PrepperCon, and then we started this podcast, and back then it was a radio show. And then I had a falling out with my business partners as I was selling PrepperCon, and then things fell apart and my life took a weird spin, and I got really frustrated because I was having job issues. I was having income issues. But what's funny? All of my prepping helped me survive that apocalypse, right? The personal apocalypse. And it's as good as savings, better than savings. Because, when rubber hits the road, I can eat my food storage. I can't eat my savings that might be in an FDIC insured bank, or might not, and might collapse and might not, right? You're taking the mights and the oh no's out of it. Well, it kept me sane through downtimes, and prepping will do that for you if you let it. And it helped me rotate my food. It helped me rotate my gear. And I was just like, hindsight, that was fantastic. Because I've seen the value of prepping throughout my life, but that reinforced it in a big way. as a grown-up, as an adult man, mansplaining everything. Now I feel okay that I spent all this money doing this thing that actually was an investment in my family and in my future.
It paid off.
It absolutely paid off, and it continues to pay off. And so those people who get burnt out with it or freak out and they turn awful, they were always awful. They were just not being honest with themselves.
It's kind of funny. I put a meme on my financial Instagram, financial self-reliance Instagram that said, it was like a quote. I called my stockbroker today and asked him what to invest in. He said canned food and ammo. And that's a really good. And so I put in the comments when I posted it, my comment was, listen, if you really understand inflation, the way we should all be understanding inflation, buying a box of 24 macaroni and cheese boxes today at $1 each is going to be an investment, because next year when they're $1.50 each, you just save 50 cents a box. And that's that's a 50%, savings.
They're already $2 a box right now.
Well, maybe I'm behind. Anyways, the point is,
I've got mac and cheese eating monsters in my house. Like they love it, and they won't eat the box stuff right now. They only want the little microwave cups.
Oh, those are more expensive.
Those are like $5 for 6. And I'm like, no. So I was breaking out the boxes the other day. I'm like, put it on the list, go get some more. And I'm like, holy crap! I remember when these were like 13 cents as a kid.
Right? You could buy 10 of them for $1.
I know. And I did. And now I'm like, what? But yeah, werewolf preppers are real, and they are going to cause problems in your life. Trust those gut feelings. If someone doesn't feel trustworthy, don't involve them.
So I just finished the book 1 second after. And in that book, it talks about a group of marauders that came through, and they would basically hit a city and just, for lack of a better way of saying it, pardon me, trigger warning maybe, they would rape and pillage that whole city, and then they would just take everything, and then they would move to the next one. And they're like devouring, beasts, if you will. They were land pirates. Yeah, good point. So to me, that's also another level of werewolf prepper, is that even after stuff goes sideways, potentially, that once you got to be, who knows what's going to happen? Like everybody thinks that there's not going to be a zombie apocalypse because, zombies are some mythological creature. But, when you think about some of the people right now, literally in, I think there was a news article that I watched the other day that said something about how these guys who are on fentanyl for a little while, they have a thirst and hunger for flesh. So they actually are becoming zombies. Well, the point is that when you get people put in a situation where they're starve or die, you have no idea what they're going to do. And so that's why it's important to get prepared for yourself, but then also be prepared to learn how to defend against that, both physically and emotionally, because you might have an organization. Here's another side of werewolf prepper that might be need to worry about. Like you might have the city, let's say a city or a church or some organization comes in and says, hey, listen, we're going to help distribute the food because the whole community is under this serious issue. Anybody with food, anybody and everybody with food storage, bring it to the storehouse, bring it to the center of the city, and we're going to distribute it out. And before you know it, you got all your food in there, and you don't have anything left for yourself because they can't ration it. Or when they do ration it, it's like a fraction of what you would have done had you been able to keep it yourself. So I think be careful with that too, because that's another aspect, in my opinion, of a werewolf prepper.
Yeah, when you're talking about zombies as well, I picture those people that right now say, well, I'm just coming to your house, right? When it hits the fan, I'm just coming to your house. There's really not much different there than what do you call a werewolf prepper? They're a wolf in sheep's clothing, essentially.
Well, they're disclosing right now their intentions are to come and take your stuff, right? And so I disclosed directly to them right then. It's like, oh, good, because since we're in full disclosure mode, I have a bullet and I'll put your name on it. And they look at me and they go, "What? You'd shoot me over your food storage?" I'm like, I would shoot anybody to protect my children.
Take food right out of their mouths.
If you're going to try to take food out of their mouths, put them in harm's way. Like I don't care if you're a pedo or anything else. If you're coming after my kids any shape or way, you're a danger. and I'm going to protect my family. Like,
And that's where they're really a zombie, right? I mean, because they don't realize what they're saying.
they've lost humanity.
Mhm.
And so what are the things we can do to protect ourselves? First and foremost is they call it OPSEC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Operational security. Keep your information private. Like the werewolf prepper that came to light through a couple of the groups online, he was getting people's addresses and then disclosing that information to other people. Dangerous parties. Don't give out your information.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give out, hey, I've got a year's supply of this, or I just bought 15, don't be posting that on social media. Hey guys, I just bought 5,000 pounds of potatoes. Like, why are you putting that online? Don't post it online. Keep your information private. That's the first and foremost thing. Keep your information private. Don't disclose.
Well, I like what you said. I like what you said, Scott, about that. Is like, look, I don't, as preppers and as podcasters, we're sharing things. And so one of the questions people get is like, well, what are you guys doing to stay safe? Well, first of all, we're public. And so public is going to keep us some safety. Number two, try to get through, because we know that we're public. And so we've protected. So it's not just, hey, if you come to my house, I promise you're going to be met with resistance that you're not going to like. And so that's the other thing. That
parenting, do as I say, not as I do. That's only in this case. And let me expound on that. We put our stuff, we're vital, not vital. We're vulnerable because we shared too much information, but it's in the hopes it'll help you guys get better prepared. That's the primary reason why we do this, is because we know a lot of people have been affected by the things we've said in the past for the good.
mm-hmm.
And so we're like, all right, okay, here's more information that I want to share. Then I would share to anyone else. And guess what? Now it's in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
And why do I do it? Well, I feel like I have enough safety in the Lord that it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The saying that comes to mind is the best defense is a good offense, right? Setting up that OPSEC, like you're saying, Scott, is that or even being aggressive in your manner of maybe even being like that individual that says, hey, I'm coming to your house. Act the complete opposite. Put on that disguise of, hey, I'm not a prepper. Hey, I'm be offensive that way, and not and that's your best defense, right? Is to fit in with the crowd, be the gray man that way.
Well, that's a great point. Be the gray man. Don't let people know that you're prepping, right? And the group that does know, the small group that you do trust, help them to also be gray men and women, right? Help them to also be quiet, nondescript. Like, we had a training a while ago, and it was about civil unrest, and he's like, rub poop on your jacket. Make yourself unappealing.
Mm-hmm.
As unappealing as possible. You don't, like, when you're out in town and you're walking around with your wife or your husband or whoever you're out there with, right? Are you looking to engage with people, or are you minding your own business?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you looking at your phone screen, right? If someone comes up to you and they reek, do you want, like, they stink, it's pungent, do you want them around you? Or do you get away from them and leave and pay them no mind? You're gonna move away and pay them no mind. That's how you get away from people, is make sure you're not something they want to be around. And if you're flashing, hey, I've got food, or hey, I've got money, people are gonna want that.
Yeah, Paris, before we started recording here, you had mentioned something about gold and silver deniers kind of fitting into this realm.
Well, there's a lot of people that are you talk to them about different ways to prepare and be prepared, and they just don't understand how it all fits in. And one of the things that I just know for sure that if crap hits the fan, when it does, actually, food and water are paramount. Like, you can't go without food and water. Like, trust me, I get it. However, this is Now this might be a little bit of a, and take this as kindly as I know, and I understand people are in certain situations, but if you're living your life such that you don't have enough money left over to have extra money, you're doing it wrong. You're not living within your means. And the kind of money we're talking about with gold and silver is that extra money, is that money that you would put into savings for those future things that you're going to buy, or money that you put in for that long term. Like if you're going to invest in the stock market and you're going to have a 401k and you're going to have an IRA, or if you're going to have, brokerage account, that's fine. Like if you have let's say if you had $100,000 sitting in a brokerage account and that was all the money you had, I personally am going to tell you, I feel like you're doing it wrong. Take 20,000 out of that, at least. Now I know, Shane, you're going to have a different percentage, but take 20,000 of that and go buy gold and silver. That way you have 80,000 in the market and you have 20,000 in precious metals. You've diversified. It's a fantastic way to do things. Now, if you want to have more particular advice, hit me up on my financial channel or send us an email, and I'll be happy to share some things with you. But there's people out there like, well, why should I buy gold? This idiot, I'm sorry, this person
Wow.
messaged me on,
really feel, Paris.
right? I did a little thing about, hey, with the CBDCs and the central bank digital currencies and what's going on with the market and the banks. I said, it's a good idea to have some of your money in precious metals, hard assets that you can hold. And the guy's like, well, what are you going to do when you go to buy something and they arrest you and they confiscate your gold and silver? Now what? And I'm like, where are you getting your information?
What are you talking about?
Like, what are you even talking about?
Well, there's all the rumblings that, gold or silver will be confiscated. That's not actually what happened previously, but, and that, or they'll be made illegal. And I mean, the same thing could happen with cryptocurrencies, with any other digital currency, Bitcoin, whatever, any blockchain type currency. So it's a moot argument, if you ask me. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? I mean, that's kind of our credo.
Let's say the crap,
not disclose it.
Yeah, let's say if crap hits the fan, and like the 1 second after scenario, or even angry Americans on going home scenario, they're pretty much the same
EMP,
thing,
right?
Major EMP, or let's even more realistic. Which an EMP is very realistic, by the way, but even more realistic. Let's say there's a massive earthquake that cuts off transportation because it cracks up a whole bunch of highways and roads. Same kind of thing, right? It might take years to get things back online. Well, you're going to need food and water and seeds and foraging skills and hunting skills to live that period of time. Well, if it brings things down, we're going to have to reset at some point. Civilization is going to have to restart, and there's going to have to be an economy built back up. And for 6,000 years, every one of those economies has been rebuilt on gold and silver. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of the reason why I feel like gold and silver is an important part of a prepper's lifestyle. And, you be careful with that, though, because you're going to have people out there that are going to be like, wait a minute, this guy's got food and water. I have food and water, but I don't have any gold and silver. So I'm going to steal this guy's. So the werewolf preppers come in here trying to stealing your gold and silver, because gold and silver is tangible. You got to have a safe or something important and special to keep it in. Otherwise, you're going to have some problems. So definitely it's part of an overall, in my opinion, financial portfolio, and not just for now, but also for the future. It's just guns and ammo for sure. Like food, water, guns, ammo, gear for cooking, and then gold and silver. You know what I mean? It all plays a part.
The other precious metal called lead, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Well, what's interesting is when it
In a
comes
particular
down
shape
to the there's a list of what everybody wants. When you're looking at people to talk to, though, and you're looking at groups, communities, you're going to find people who talk the talk but don't walk the walk. Mm-hmm. Be leery of those people, right? You can identify the wolves in sheep's clothing or the werewolf preppers by what they do, and also by what they don't do. If they are not prepping, they're not the same as you, mm-hmm. right? If you find them mocking preppers a lot, backhanded compliments, right? You'd be prettier if you didn't have those ankles. those types of statements about prepping or about anything that you're doing, like, don't disclose to those type of people.
Mhm.
Like the number one thing is just be aware of who you're talking to and what they're bringing to the table, so that you can exclude yourself from their view, right? From their target list. But absolutely go back to the other precious metal, lead.
Mm-hmm.
Very vital to have that.
But-
Your home protection in place.
Yep. And I think obviously a really vital part of being able to defend yourself is getting to a location where you can defend yourself. Living
Mhm.
in an urban or maybe even suburban area is probably not going to be the best in this type of situation, right? So having a plan to, and I do say the word plan, to bug out, where you can't just bug out. We're not fans of bugging out unless you're prepared to bug out.
Yep.
Having a remote location to go to. And then at that point, you have some visibility to ability to more easily defend yourself and get away from those masses and hopefully potentially those werewolf groups, prepper groups.
Yeah. The key is to make yourself not seen and to identify the threats, stay away from the threats immediately. The people who got affected by this guy, it's affected their lives outside of the world of prep. It's affected their lives in other circles. And he's actually been playing and toying with them for a little while now. And I'm so glad I saw him for what he was in the beginning. I've distanced myself from this individual. There are always going to be threats to your wellness, right? Your preparedness, your everything. There's always threats in every aspect of life. The whole goal with preparedness is to help you to be more resilient, to help you be insured, if you will, against all types of threats and or global catastrophes and personal catastrophes, whether they're man-made or nature just decides to have a fit and you get to be in the mix of it.
Well, I think if you ever had that thought of being a werewolf prepper, maybe not consciously or whatever, but I think maybe that comes from all the one aspect from all these video games that people are playing. And I'll play them on occasion as well. And the thing that bugs me the most, you're going to attack a base, you're spawn in, right? And then you're taken out first thing. Oh dang it, I didn't even get a shot off. You don't even get to play, right? Whereas if you take that approach and you're saying, I'm out of this or I'm out of that, I'm going to go take it from somebody because I'm not going to let my family starve, but I'll let somebody else. But you prepare. Anyway, I won't go into that. But then you open that door and then, someone like myself or any of you were prepared to take on that person and then their game is over, right? Game over. So that is, I see it. It's gambling. It's just a pure gamble, and I'm not a gambler, right? And that's why I buy gold and silver. I'm not a gambler. I'm not in the markets. I can't afford to lose anything, and so I think that's one of the really bad aspects of thinking you'll be a werewolf prepper. But also the things that come to mind is, think about the last days what we're in. The hearts of men will wax cold. A perfect example right there, right?
Yeah.
And then of course reaping what you sow. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. And that's the way it's going to be in the last days. And so that's one of the reasons I'm bugging out. So
one of the interesting things is like right now, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. But like right now, like you live by the net, you die by the net, the internet. There's so many people who just watching what's happening in my circle of people I know. I've seen families fall apart because of what they do on the internet. I've seen individuals lose their emotional stability because of participating in certain things on the internet. Like there's so many benefits, but also so many drawbacks to what is available to us as a society, what is available to us as a world. And it reminds me of the study that was done, and it ended the same way every time. It was, I can't remember if it was rats or mice, but they gave them, basically created a little town for them and gave them everything they needed. And then they started giving them things like drugs. And they ended up all dying because they were given things that they didn't need, but that would make them not want to work anymore, not be involved and not contribute. And as long as you're contributing, and you have a purpose, you've got something to live for. But as soon as you lose that purpose and you stop contributing, you start dying. And they've noticed this. And every time they've done those rat studies over and over again, the rats have all died. As soon as they start integrating too much entertainment and too much and the drugs and the alcohol and those things, it's like, yeah, those things will kill you. It'll literally take the life out of you. Even if you're alive, you become a zombie. Like,
Yeah.
it just eliminates it. And so be cautious in where you put your time and where you spend your time with regard to just all manners of living, but also with prep, because you never know who's going to be in that open chat room. You never know who's going to be listening to anything you're doing online.
It's also important to realize that if any human being has done it or could do it, you as a human being have the capacity to do it too. And so that should scare you to death, because there's some really evil and wicked things people and human beings can do, and you have the capacity to do it. You know, are you a narcissist? Maybe not, but you have narcissistic tendencies. Maybe you have the ability to be evil, and maybe you have the ability to be. I literally could see a scenario where I could be tempted to be a werewolf prepper. I could be tempted to do that, but is my character, is my soul, is my integrity, is my belief in Christ and the abilities to follow him and you know what, surrender, whatever it is. I don't need to steal from others. If I believe and have a faith that Christ will take care of me, if I follow what he's asked me to do, then it will all work out. The people I think that are werewolf preppers are selfish. They have very little to no faith. They don't believe that things will work out for them because they have to take it now. If they don't take it now, there's no way they're going to get it any other way but by their own taking it now. And that to me is another testament about why these communities are so important, but also why it's important to have some discernment and the ability to realize, you know what, you have to see these people. First of all, you have to recognize that is a human behavior is to steal and cheat and be carnally minded and desire to just take you out. Like, recognize that, because when you see somebody else, you may not pursue that path with your own life, and hopefully you aren't. But if you see somebody else pursuing that path, that's a key indicator. That's a red flag. Wait a minute, I need to keep my eye on that guy or that gal, because they're going down a road that I wouldn't choose, but I need to be aware of, because they could come at me, bro, and I need to be able to defend myself against them. So just be aware of that, I think, is important.
No, absolutely. I think just like you said, if you think you wouldn't get to that point if your family was starving and you were ill prepared, what would you do? You know, none of us, you know, I've never been to the point to where I had to make that kind of decision. But if I can make that decision now and say, I will never do that. You know, I would rather starve than, you know, make that hard decision now. Figure out what you're going to do now. If you are going to become a werewolf prepper, decide now, right? I guess, you know, if you don't have, you know, figure out what you're going to do and let that motivate you to get ready now, to go buy a bag of rice and buy beans and whatever you might need to avoid that, and let that fire burn within you to say, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can now. And like you say, Paris, if that's all I can do, then the Lord will bless me otherwise. But if not, you know, I love that saying, but if not, you know, we'll leave that in the Lord's hand. And so if we die, we die. You know, make those decisions now instead of later when you're compromised and you're not thinking clearly.
To me, that's a sign of true, like, anciently, your word was your bond. If you gave somebody a promise, and it's crazy to me as I read some of these ancient stories, and I'm talking maybe a couple hundred years ago, even in some cases, but the knights of the old round table, so to speak, or even in ancient times, as you read through the Bible, like, they would, on a handshake, they would rather die than break that commitment or that oath. And especially when they say, you know, on the life of my whatever, I promise you the following. Like, that was like written in blood, like in stone.
They'd rather die. Yeah, they'd rather die.
That's honor, integrity, character. Those are real manly things, and women can have it too. I'm not saying that women can't have that too, because they can have the same honor. But to me, that seems like it's more in the realm of that, you know, honor among men. You know, and there's no honor among thieves. But there is honor among men of God who want to do the right thing and to pursue the proper course. and of meaning and elevating others into that meaning. And that's that. Werewolf preppers are the opposite of that. And so as people who are going to be, if you're going to be the kind of person that wants to help edify and elevate others, you have to know the opposite. You have to know what the opposite is. And that's a werewolf prepper. You have to be able to discern that, not just be able to discern it, but then have the emotional and mental fortitude to do something about it. Because I promise you, if that guy gets hungry enough, he's going to kill you to get your food, and he may do it in your sleep. So you got to be able to say, you know what? We got to kick this guy out. We got to get rid of this guy early. And that's hard to do when you see another guy and his family starving and he's a werewolf prepper, and you got to just say, we got to cut ties or else you're going to ruin all of us. Like, it reminds me of the lifeguard that goes out to save a guy who's swimming, and they don't get close to him unless they can stop, calm down enough because if that guy's flailing around and punches the lifeguard and they both drown, you don't want to both drown. You're not, you know, I don't want anybody to drown, but it's better that I don't.
Throw them the life preserver first, right? And so figure out what that life preserver is now that you can throw them and then get away, right? So maybe that's a strategy as well.
You're on mute, Scott.
It goes back to the fact that you have no ability to help if you are in danger yourself. Right? The first rule of prepping is you're doing this to make sure that you are useful to the ones you love, to God, and to your community. You know, we're Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded. We are here to help people get closer to God, to keep prepared and aligned with God, with your family, and to be better citizens, if you want to use that word, better humans, better human beings, better brothers and sisters for your community. Because there are times where you're going to have to rebuild in your own personal life, but also in the life of your community. There are tragedies that befall all the time, and you might find yourself in one of those scenarios in the next couple of years. Hopefully not, but there's always a chance. And so always stay ready. Stay focused on why you're doing this, so you can get through it.
And hopefully that'll give you the energy and the passion, like we have the passion to get ready, even though we may not see that need in our lives. I mean, like Scott has seen that benefit. But there's a saying that keeps coming to mind that I think about on a regular basis. Life is a two-way range. You're shooting, people are shooting back at you. And even more so in this type of situation. So I guess what I mean by that is that none of us are exempt from this happening to us. But we can increase our chances of success, of survival, by doing and planning now. So
awareness brings change, and that's one of the things that we love about a community, because where things that we know and think about, we will bring to your awareness, and things that you know and think about, you bring to our awareness. And as we become more aware and situationally aware and emotionally aware and spiritually aware, we become better prepared and ready to go. I just did a video on our channel about my car kit, and it's important to have a car kit because you want to be safe for if your car breaks down. But at the end of the video, I shared, what if you come across somebody who their car broke down and they don't have a blanket, they don't have a flares, they don't have food to last, they don't have water. You can be a resource to other people with your preps when they don't have them. And that's something that is also a huge aspect of preparedness and being ready. And especially someone who has what I call, I just posted on my in my social media, and this guy was like, he kind of got a little self-righteous, and he's like, well, the Bible, this, that, and the other. And I was like, yeah, but you know what? There's a scripture in the Bible that says that you can have all the prophecies and all the skills and all the gifts, but if you don't have charity, which is love, you don't have it. It doesn't matter. So being able to serve others and give to others, I don't want to say there's a power in when you can give to others, lose your life in the service of others, you actually gain more for your own life.
Well, it comes down to choice, right? When someone's trying to take something from you, you have no choice, right? It's by force. If you, like you say, if you have charity and you choose to give And I'm sure it depends on the situation. You know,
Mhm.
we're not in SHTF, when it's not hitting the fan, it's much easier to choose to help someone out with something you have than the opposite when we're all distressed and in that situation. So again, I think it's a good idea to choose now what you'll do in certain situations, and be prepared for that.
So to end out this episode, I want to remind everyone, do what you can now to better prepare yourself. Keep your head on a swivel and your eyes peeled. Listen to know who's around you and whether they can be trusted or not, so that you can keep yourself and your family safer. So that when times come and they're tough, you have some more resilience in your back pocket. Now, with that in mind, remember, we've got a special promotion going on with our friends over at Jase Medical. You can get your emergency antibiotics. You're probably, if you're aware of what's going on, they're getting harder and harder to get right now. But if you go to jasemedical.com, that's JASE medical.com, you can get your emergency kit prescribed to you, and you can use the code PrepperTalk and save $10. I've got mine. These guys have theirs. Fantastic to have and to use, and you can get refills with them. It is phenomenal. Until next time, please be engaged in good works. Please work on your own personal preparedness. And if you have questions on where to start, how to get going, and need a little bit more help and encouragement, you feel free to join Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance on Facebook. That's our group. You can find it linked through any of our social media channels, Prepper Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in, not tuning out, and thank you for being ready-minded. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care, guys.
See you next week.